Biblical end-time prophecy happening now. Cashless society, a financial sign of the end time. The more we draw closer to the end times, the more we find biblical prophecies about the end times being fulfilled. There are already several signs that are pointing us to the realities that will take place during the Great Tribulation. We received an email regarding this specific topic. The email was titled, "This biblical end-time prophecy was fulfilled this year, but people don't realize it." The email read as follows. "Hello. I recently watched your video called, 'This biblical end-time prophecy was fulfilled this year, but people don't realize it.' And it got me thinking. The decade we're living in is anticipated to be swept with technological disruption as we're digitizing every aspect of our day-to-day lives. The way we pay for things makes no exception. I see the world moving more and more towards a cashless society. Is this a sign of biblical end times prophecy? Because in all honesty, I would not be surprised if in the next 10 years the developed countries operated in a cashless society." I read an article which stated, "Developed countries have moved a big step closer to becoming a cashless society after official data showed that the number of payments made using notes and coins fell by 35% in 2020. Changes in spending habits have been dramatically accelerated by the events of the last 2 years, with more and more people leading a cashless life. 5 in 6 payments now involve no notes or coins, compared with half of all transactions a decade ago." Now my question is this. Does the Bible mention a cashless society? And also, how does digital currencies relate to the mark of the beast? To answer the question, I would like to state that a cashless society is not a stone-cold indicator that the Lord's return is imminent. There are signs which are more reliable signs. For instance, 2 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 through 5 says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people." The description in 2 Timothy 3 verses 1 through 5 is an accurate description of the world we live in. Oh, how people are lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. The world is getting more and more anti-God, and that's a clear indication that we are in the last days. Another example of more reliable signs can be seen in Jesus Christ's Olivet Discourse. Matthew 24:5 says, "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places." A cashless society will give the Antichrist totalitarian government more control over its citizens. So although the Bible does not explicitly mention a cashless society, I believe that it will have a part to play, and it is somewhat associated with the mark of the beast. Revelation 13 verses 16 through 17 says about the Antichrist, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." The time draws near when the world will be brought under his rule and his leadership. And without taking his mark, you'll be pretty much frozen out of society. Revelation chapter 6 verses 5 through 6 says, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Revelation 6 verses 5 through 6 suggests that in the end time there will be severe famine, which will be accompanied with a terrible inflation rate. When inflation becomes highly abnormal, it is plausible that this may introduce the cashless society worldwide, and potentially a one-world currency. Some Bible scholars believe that the one-world government, which the Antichrist will establish, will bring every nation under a unified economy, where everyone will be compelled to accept the mark of the beast, either on their right hands or on their foreheads. Although this mark could be an actual physical brand, it could very easily be connected to the technological advances being made today. In 2017, Deutsche Bank Chief Executive John Crayon predicted at Davos that in about 10 years' time, 2027, cash won't probably exist. As of 2017, when this prediction was made, only about 20% of consumers in Sweden made payments by cash. Back then, Sweden appeared to be at the forefront of the movement to eradicate the use of notes and coins. Meanwhile, it was predicted that Australia could become cashless as early as 2022, our current year. A few years ago, the Indian government launched a demonetization process, which made citizens to actively explore alternatives to cash. Currently, there's a high appreciation of digital payment mechanisms. ATM cards are being used for payments after shopping, and digital transfers are made by phone with the ease of generating receipts of payments. The need for a cashless society is largely driven by consumers who want to avoid the risk of moving large amounts of money. And in all honesty, doing things digitally is considerably quicker and faster and more convenient. Even if to look at it from a practical point, transferring money digitally is much quicker and safer than physically having to move cash. As our society is moving towards a higher level of digitization, checks are becoming obsolete, and there's an increase in the usage of debit and credit cards. I can't remember the last time I used checks. According to some reports, the first cashless society could be a reality by 2023, with Sweden at the forefront of this digital revolution. The report says that an alternative means of cashless society, which involves microchipping people's hands, is already occurring in some countries. There's no doubt that once it becomes successful, many other nations will follow suit. Other reports detail, due to global events over the last 2 years, more Americans are opting for contactless means of payment to avoid direct contact with cash. On March 1st, 2020, about 8% of American Square sellers were said to be effectively cashless. Surprisingly, before the end of April 2020, the number of cashless businesses had increased to 31%. Meanwhile, America is projected to become cashless by 2033. The use of recent technology could allow the implanting of electronic chips into people's hands. When this chip is scanned, electronic payments can be made for the purchase of any commodity. These chips can even allow people to start their cars with a wave of their hand, gain access to their workplace, gain access to their home. The technology is gradually taking over cash transactions due to its versatility, speed, and less risk of fraud. However, there's no evidence that shows these advancements in technology is the mark of the beast. But what we do know is that it does allow the Antichrist to implement his mission, that whosoever does not have the mark cannot buy nor sell. The mark of the beast is real. However, it's not here yet, because when it is here, the world will definitely know it. No one will be able to either buy or sell without the mark on his or her right hand or forehead. Revelation 14 verses 9 through 10 says, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark on his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb." What we are experiencing now is a reminder that the Antichrist is coming to fulfill what the Word of God says. We have to prepare ourselves not to be victims of the affliction of those days. So in summary, the book of Revelation can still be fulfilled with a cashless society, or even without a cashless society. but it is undeniable that it will be much easier for the Antichrist and his system to monitor who buys or sells if the world operates in a cashless society.